Hello again, Teacher Cadet class. This is Miss Wooten. We've been looking at some PowerPoints. The first two were on planning a lesson. So how do you, go about making sure that your students know what it is that you need them to learn. The second one that we looked at, and the first one was in two parts, remember. The second one talked about what is the most effective type of question to write when you are planning an assessment for checking to see whether students have learned the material or not. There's one more really key element of being a teacher and planning to have your own classroom when you get into field experience that we've got to talk about, and that is classroom management. And okay, so we talk, sometimes students tend to think about teachers as, oh, she punished me for this, or oh, well, she's really strict about this or that or whatever. The thing is, teaching requires management skills, just like a business requires a manager, right? You need to have somebody overseeing the production of what it is that people in a business are doing, whether it is, the boss of a store has to oversee the sales that occur. The boss at a hospital has to make sure that the doctors are treating their patients and that the nurses are getting to where they need to be, right? So we have administrators and we have people that are in management, and they effectively make sure that everything runs smoothly. Discipline is only one part of that. Right, and we will talk about discipline, but classroom management has to do with making sure that all of the necessary elements are in place so that students can learn, and learning is the necessary output of a school, right? It's just as important as, if you go to Barnes and Noble, they make sales in books. That's what they do. They sell books, right? At a school, we teach, and so we have to make sure that that process goes smoothly. Oh, uh-oh. Okay, so here we go. So the first question that we need to ask when we're thinking about our own classroom or running a classroom, when we're doing our field experience and we've got little people looking up at us and wondering what we're going to do, is what are our classroom behavior goals? In other words, if somebody were to walk into our classroom to observe our students, what kinds of things would they see our students doing, or would they see them really not doing? And we talk about rules and procedures here. Okay? Now here's the difference. Rules, these are a set of behaviors that are expected from all students at all times. So an example of rules would be, you will always come prepared for class. You will raise your hand before speaking. You will always wait to leave the classroom until the teacher dismisses you. Those are rules. Those are things that and by the way, they should be phrased as positive statements. You will do this, you will do that. We try not to phrase them as negative statements, like never do this, or you'll be in trouble if you do this, because we want the classroom to be a positive environment, right? We're setting expectations for students' behavior. We're not giving them something that they're going to hopefully not do and then suggest it for them. Like if you say, never talk out of turn, students are going to have the suggestion that, oh, hey, talking out of turn sounds fun. So we phrase it as positive things. You will always wait to speak. And do this and do that, not don't do this and don't do that. Procedures are just everyday guidelines for how to go about classroom tasks. So an example for that would be the way that you line up by the door, right? When this is really big in elementary school. I remember having to line up boy, girl, boy, girl. That's a procedure for how to exit the classroom. There could be a procedure for how a teacher is going to get the student's attention. When the teacher claps twice, the students clap 3 times, and then they stop talking and they pay attention to the teacher. There might be a procedure for how to get into groups, or how to get your lunch box, or how to come in from recess, or how to ask to go to the water fountain, right? Just everyday things that you might want to do. And again, this goes back to setting the groundwork for what kind of environment you want in your classroom. Do you want a classroom in which students have a positive experience and everybody has an opportunity to learn? Yes, of course you do. A lot of people don't want to set rules because they want the students to feel free in their classroom. But the problem with that is that Some students are going to take control of the classroom environment and they're going to make it harder for other students to learn. So setting rules and procedures makes sure that you have a fair environment for all of your students and that everybody has the potential for being successful. All right? So the next question you want to ask yourself, and this is a big one, is what are my expectations for student participation? What are we going to do when we get to class? How are we going to start class? Are students going to come in right away when the bell rings and sit down, and are they going to do a problem on the smartboard? Are they going to write in their journals? Are they going to just wait until the bell rings before they sit down? How are you going to start class? Because that procedure a lot of times will set the tone for how the rest of the class goes. Bell ringers are a really important thing for a lot of teachers because the students, they've lost a lot of focus in the space between their last class and your class. When they get in the hallway, they're talking to their friends. You want to be able to bring them back into focus, especially on what you are working on with your students. So what is it that they need to be thinking about for the day? Other parts of class you might want to think about too are, how to do transitions from independent work to group work to listening to notes to writing, how to do the end of class if you have something like maybe an exit ticket that you do with your students, something that shows what your students have learned over the course of the period. And if they always are going to expect that, then they're going to be ready for it when it comes. But if they don't know what to expect, then you're going to have more of a potential for behavior issues, right? So the next question is, how am I going to ensure that students are with it? How are they going to be held accountable for paying attention and for being on task? So what are you going to do if they're off task? How are you going to make sure that they're paying attention? Are you going to take questions from are going to take answers from all students, or are you going to cold call your students to make sure that the ones that aren't raising their hands are still paying attention? Are you going to check for eye contact? And sometimes students can be really good with faking eye contact, and they can smile and nod and pretend like they're paying attention, but they're not. So how are you going to make sure that students are engaged, right, in what it is that you're trying to get them to do? How are you going to manage student work? So I haven't really talked about grading yet, but this is where it all begins. When something is due, say they've got a homework assignment, where are they going to go to turn it in? How often are they going to go to turn it in? How are they, sorry, my dog is barking like a crazy. I don't know what she's doing over there, but she's barking at something. Groot, settle down. Sorry, guys. Where are they going to go turn work in? What are you going to do? How soon are you going to get it back to them? How are you going to hand it back to them? What happens if it's late, or what happens if they don't turn it in at all, right? So how do you manage that, right? And how do you go about grading it as well? The next big question is, and this is the one that a lot of new teachers especially have a lot of fun with, how are you going to arrange your classroom? Are you going to have your desks in neat rows, 5 by 4, or are you going to have it in concentric circles, right? We have one kind of big U shape in our classroom. Are you going to arrange it in pods, right? Like, are you going to maybe have 4 to a table? Or are you going to put students in different places in the classroom depending on whether they have a learning need that means they need to sit in a certain area versus another one, right? Where are you going to put bookshelves, the teacher desk? If you have an elementary school classroom and you have a class pet, where are you going to put the class pet? Where are you going to put your, if you have like a sustained silent reading area with rugs, where are you going to put the rugs? How are you going to arrange it? Are you going to have your students facing the smartboard or facing a different direction? What other materials do you need, right? With middle and high school, we can, this is a little bit different from elementary school. Middle and high school, you pretty much need some desks and a smartboard and some bookcases. With elementary school, you might need stations for imaginative play. You might need like a math table, a reading table, different workstations for struggling learners. You might need all kinds of different things. You might need a puppet show station, whatever you need in elementary school. So those are questions that you need to ask. What is your classroom going to look like? Okay? The fourth question that you want to ask is, what happens when students break the rules or they fail to follow procedures? or if they don't meet your expectations in some other way. So what do you do? Well, if you look at my board, I have a set of I have a list of repercussions for students that fail to follow my expectations. I give warnings and detentions. I call home and talk to parents. I deal with discipline, sometimes by referring students to an administrator. I've been really lucky this year, knock on wood. I haven't had to write a referral yet for any of my students, but I've had to do it in the past, and sometimes a student needs to go have a sort of, come to Jesus meeting with an administrator and talk about what's going on. But really, the best thing that you can do is before any of that even starts, just kind of predict when students are looking like they might be about to have an issue, and to try to build a bridge to see where that student is coming from and to understand why they're having a problem that day, or what it is you can do to meet the needs that they have, right? So with classroom management, and this one's, I'm almost done, yay. With classroom management, there are two big rules, okay? Rule number one is always be consistent. If you have a rule and they break the rule, they have to have that consequence for that rule right away. Yeah, see, my dog just barked her affirmation of that. Yes, she agrees with me. So consistency ensures that everybody in the classroom feels safe and that everybody knows what to expect and they get what they expect, right? That's rule one. Rule number two with classroom management is love. And I'm going to tell you right now, sometimes rule number two outweighs rule number one. Okay? What that means is you have to understand when you come into a room full of children that those children are human beings. They are individuals. They are not cogs in a machine to be filled with knowledge in a perfect way that you are going to pour it into their heads like a factory machine, right? That's not what's going to happen. These are individual human beings. And if you respect their individuality, and you understand their uniqueness, then they will be much more likely to respect your need for order and management in the classroom. And those are my two big rules. Now, I don't think I mentioned this for the last PowerPoint about Bloom's taxonomy. There is a worksheet that I need you to fill out. It's really just looking at the different levels of Bloom's and how they're different. So that's that one. For this PowerPoint, the worksheet that you need to do is you need to answer the set of questions. They are in the textbook, but I've made a copy of it for you. Answer the set of questions about what kinds of decisions you would make if you were running your own classroom, and that will be labeled for you PowerPoint 4. Okay? So all of your worksheets should be labeled. They're really more checks than they are worksheets anyway, but it is what it is. And hopefully, barring any additional illness, I will be back with you tomorrow once my antibiotics have had time to kick in so that I won't be contagious anymore. I love you guys. I miss you guys. You have no idea how much I wanted to be there today, but I will see you tomorrow. Ta-ta.